Okay, we finally have the missing link. The actual reason EmbarkStudios is not going the seasonal wipe route, which pretty much all extraction shooters do. They are doing what a lot of us speculated. They hinted at some type of prestige system, and it looks like that's what we have going on here. And I'm hyped for it because, you know, EmbarkStudios is really going a different direction. They're really veering away from tradition. It could be a good thing or a bad thing. In this case, ArcRaiders is becoming somewhat of a cult following, and the game is highly recommended by so many people. I don't think I've talked to anybody who said one bad thing about the game. Anyways, let's talk about what Embark just dropped, because this changes everything. For a while now, people have been asking the question, if ArcRaiders has no wipes, what's going to keep the long-term progression fresh? Now, first of all, I chimed in about this, about how ArcRaiders may not have an endgame, but then I kind of went back on that subject. Not every game needs an endgame, simply because the gameplay loop, the game feel, the game itself is good enough to just play and have hours, days, months, even years of replay value based on just how the game is made. And I think ArcRaiders falls into this category. Even with that though, they are adding some type of end game in the form of what they call the Expedition Project. Essentially, this is Embark's alternative to traditional wipes, but done in a way that doesn't punish your time investment, which is the goal, right? Instead of the game forcing everyone to start over, you choose when to reset. It's a voluntary system that kicks in after completing a major late game milestone called an Expedition Project. Now, this is what I was talking about when developers or companies didn't really solve the problem of bridging the gap of sweats, tryhards, and casual players. And I think this is one of the first steps that is taken. First of all, a lot of PvE players love ArcRaiders despite the fact that it's PvP, because you can just kind of go in there solo and do your own thing. If you play tactful and stealthy, you don't really have to engage. I mean, it's going to be inevitable, but that's part of the thrill, right? Anyways, this Expedition Project is a catalyst to help bridge that gap of casuals and sweats, because, it's not forcing anything. Everybody's on their own timetable, and everybody can play the game at their own pace without having to worry about anything. So what is an expedition? At level 20, you'll unlock your first one. Think of it as an 8-week season-long goal, a big commitment that you build towards over time. Once you've met all the requirements, you'll have the option to finalize it during a 1-week window. If you miss that window, no problem, no sweat. Your progress carries over into the next cycle. That's cool. Yes. And lore-wise, this makes perfect sense because the expedition represents raiders leaving the Rust Belt, venturing into uncharted tunnels beyond 𝒉𝒂𝒂. They said it's dangerous, it's permanent, and in world terms, it's a one-way trip. Now, this would be so cool. I mean, they said in lore terms, right? And as soon as they said something like that, venturing into the uncharted tunnels beyond 𝒉𝒂𝒂, I had a mental picture in my head just visualizing something like this, because it talks about in the Rust Belt, which is actually based on a real concept in the United States, from Michigan to Pennsylvania, just north areas of the United States, where the Rust Belt are the remnants of industrial complexes and machinery that's been decayed over time because of abandonment, famine, a catastrophe, a post-apocalyptic pandemic, whatever the case, or the case of what's happened in ArcRaiders. So with the Rust Belt being this area of desolation, to have beneath that 𝒉𝒂𝒂, which has so many interlocking tunnels that span across who knows where, that would be so amazing if they can expand that idea past a lore concept. Just think of it, right? It would not only provide more replay value, it would have entire new maps. Can you imagine exploring underneath the Rust Belt and going to other tunnels that are interlocking to different areas of the maps? I mean, they should do that, but that's further down the road. Right now, it's just talking about it from a lore perspective, and that's cool too. Because when you look at it, expeditions aren't actually going and exploring these tunnels, it's completing tasks, as you can see here in this video that they provided. It's a checklist of things that you have to do in order to reach your expedition goals. And I'm sure it's more than that. Now, when you commit to an expedition reset, you lose your character-based progress, of course. Gear, levels, skills, crafting, the works. But you keep cosmetics, achievements, and purchases that you buy with real money. Basically everything tied to your account identity. You also get to skip the early tutorial grind on your new character. So Embark's planning to reward these resets with permanent account unlocks, exclusive cosmetics, and temporary account buffs for the next expedition cycle. This makes sense, right? It gives you an incentive to want to do it. Now, there's a reason to do this. Normally, I don't really like wipes or resetting my character's progression, but there are a lot of incentives to do this. For example, these collectibles, cosmetics. I like cosmetics because I like to flex in front of my friends or just have something cool or exclusive that somebody else doesn't have. Also, it gives you temporary account buffs for the next expedition cycle, which you're going to need because you're starting fresh. So it makes sense to give you something temporary to give you that little boost. But one of the main reasons to do this is because there are 3 skill trees, right? Now, in the early stages of your progression through the skill tree, you can dabble in mobility, conditioning, survival. You can dabble in all of these, but there are 6 skills at the end of the skill tree that you can't get unless you commit 36 points to that specific skill tree. So like if you want to get vaults on vaults on vaults, which is very cool in the mobility tree, you have to dedicate 36 total points into that skill tree alone to attain that skill. So this is actually a reason to complete your expedition so that you can explore all 3 skill trees in their entirety, because surely you won't be able to get all of these high level skills. There's just not going to be enough points for you to spec into all of them. And I like having my own identity in a way on a skill tree. Some games like Dune Awakening, and I'm not downplaying it at all, but you can literally get everything on the skill tree, from Bene Gesserit to Mentat to the Trooper. You can get everything. So I mean, this allows for you to go down a certain path and choose what type of player you want to be. And this way you'll see like variety in other players as well. So I think that's a huge reason to go through this expedition cycle. And this is key, okay? They're not making it pay to win, stat based. These buffs are more about quality of life improvements, bragging rights, and like visual flexes, like I said. In other words, it's progression through mastery, not through grind. This is dope, man. Like, people were complaining about how wiping is kind of like a redundant process, and it's getting old, because they would go and wipe their character and grind for 24 hours straight or 48 hours straight to get back to that area and then do it again and then take a break and then do it again. So it's like a redundant grind that doesn't really feel like anything but that. I think Embark as a whole is just trying to change that whole narrative and perspective. And that's what makes it so smart. It respects both types of players, the hardcore raiders who want a fresh start every few months, and the casual players who just want to keep what they've earned. Nobody loses time. Everyone gets to choose their own loop. This is honestly the most balanced approach I've seen to the wipe or no wipe debate. It gives ArcRaiders its own identity, not like every other extraction shooter reset system, but as a world that grows with you, not against you. I'm going to leave a link down in the description to this. It'll break down everything for you. You can read it for yourself, but I just wanted to give you an overall understanding of what it was exactly, cut and dry, so you can pretty much be ready for everything that's coming. Now, I don't think these are going to be in the server slam. I'm pretty sure there's only going to be one map, and they don't want to give you too much. The server slam is just like a stress test to see how everything holds up, because there are going to be a ton of players on these servers at one time. So be looking forward to this in the main game, everything to be released, and I cannot wait. So what do you think about this expedition system? Is it cool to you, or do you prefer the old system? I personally really like it, and I think it's a step forward in evolution of this whole extraction genre. But let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. As always, I appreciate you for stopping by until the end. Like the video if you liked it. Don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel if you're new here, fam. I'll see you topside. Be right out.